From the other side of the Footlights, here is WHRO FM critic M.D. Ridge.
There were folks in costume and strange beaky masks at the Virginia Symphony's October 31st concert at Chrysler Hall. Well, it was Halloween, after all. I had just put out a little table with a biggish bowl of candy and left, hoping for the best. First on the program was Escale, Ports of Call by Jacques Ibert, an evocative three-movement work inspired by the Mediterranean ports he had visited while serving in the Navy in World War I. In the first movement, Rome-Palermo, Deborah Cross's soft flute set a languorous mood, followed by scurrying trumpets and returning again to the languorous melody. The second movement, Tunis-Nefta, featured Sherry Aguirre's sensuous oboe. Cellos and basses provided percussive rhythms. Nefta is an oasis town in Tunisia, close to the Algerian line. It borders on a large inland lake, inaccessible to naval ships, but the composer might have visited on his own. Valencia, the final movement, was full of Spanish melodies and rhythms, including subtle castanets and full-on brass for an impressive ending. The Nashville Symphony, and a consortium of the orchestras of Asheville, Detroit, El Paso, South Florida, the Redwood Symphony, the Erie Philharmonic, and the Virginia Symphony, co-commissioned Grammy-winning composer Michael Dougherty's Tales of Hemingway, a concerto for cello and orchestra, which premiered in Nashville in April. Cellist Zuill Bailey, who was the soloist, had worked extensively with the composer for 2 years before premiering the work. The very tall Dougherty was present for the Virginia premiere, looming over Joanne Valletta and beaming at the orchestra. The four movements bore the titles of Ernest Hemingway's stories. Big Two-Hearted River was an early story about a wounded soldier seeking spiritual renewal on a fishing trip in northern Michigan. The orchestra brought out the elegiac beauty of communing with nature. Bailey plumbed its low notes, its double stops and harmonics in a weird glissando all the way up the cello's neck. For Whom the Bell Tolls was a tale of the Spanish Civil War. Hemingway always wanted to be where the action was, in love and in war. Dougherty's music was powerful, with a striking pizzicato during which Bailey used his hand percussively against the body of the instrument, while the orchestra crescendoed into silence. The Old Man and the Sea was a Hemingway novella about an old fisherman in a life-and-death struggle with a giant fish. The music was pensive with eerie glissandos. Principal bassoonist Laura Lacering had a lovely duet with the cello. The final movement, The Sun Also Rises, references Hemingway's fascination with bullfighting, bringing in Spanish rhythms with Bailey plucking his cello like a guitar and creating a high, sweet singing tone in a lovely lyrical passage with the orchestra and a striking climax. If all you know of Sir Edward Elgar's The Pomp and Circumstance Marches, that's a shame, because his variations on an original theme, called the Enigma Variations, is a splendid and moving work. After the introductory theme, there are 14 variations that the composer said was a counter-melody to a very familiar tune, the name of which he never revealed, and which remains a mystery. But it could have been one of Elgar's jokes, too. The variations are named after the composer's wife, several friends, many of them musicians too, Elgar himself, even a friend's dog, and depict the subject's personality and often a specific event. And the whole piece is dedicated to the friends pictured within. Probably the most popular variation is number 9, Nimrod, a sweepingly emotional adagio that memorializes Augustus J. Yeager, Elgar's music editor who encouraged him during a period of depression. Variation 6, Isabel, is a charming romantic movement describing a viola pupil of the composer's. Beverly Kane Baker played it with great beauty. There's not enough time to go through every movement, but think of a wonderful party with unusual, interesting people, their different conversations rising and falling, observed by a generous, caring host. Conductor Joanne Valletta and the Virginia Symphony brought it all to sweeping, evocative life. Or you could do what I did when I first heard the Enigma Variations. Bought a good CD and listened to it obsessively in the car for weeks. And it's still surprising. But live music is the best. From the other side of the Footlights, I'm M.D. Ridge.